Ella arrived in Lucerne just after sunrise, stepping off the train into a crisp alpine morning. The air smelled of pine and fresh bread, and the city shimmered beneath a blanket of mist rising from Lake Lucerne. Behind the station stood the snow-dusted peaks of Mount Pilatus and Mount Rigi. Their reflections mirrored perfectly in the calm blue waters. It felt like walking into a painting. Outside the train station, the first thing that caught her eye was the majestic wooden bridge stretching across the Reuss River. The Kapellbrücke, Chapel Bridge, was lined with colorful flowers and framed by the Wasserturm, the old stone water tower that had once served as a prison. Swans glided beneath the bridge, and the early morning quiet was only broken by the occasional bell of a cyclist or the hum of a passing tram. Her hotel was a short walk away in the old town, nestled among cobbled alleys and pastel buildings adorned with painted frescoes. The concierge greeted her warmly, and her room overlooked a narrow street with a small bakery just below. The scent of butter and sugar drifted up through the window. Ella dropped off her bags and wandered back out, eager to explore. She made her way to a small cafe on the corner of Kornmarkt. Sitting at a bistro table, she ordered a creamy café crème and a slice of Zopf, the soft, braided Swiss bread. Locals read newspapers, spoke softly in Swiss German, and greeted each other with gentle nods. She listened to the rhythm of the language and took notes in her journal. After breakfast, she followed the river toward the Museumauer, Lucerne's ancient city wall. The towers stood like silent guards from another time. She climbed the steep stairs of the Zweite Tower and looked out over the city. Tiled rooftops stretched below her, the lake sparkled in the morning sun, and the mountains stood like watchful giants in the distance. She continued walking along the wall, pausing at each tower. Some were open, with wooden beams and spiral stairs that creaked beneath her feet. From up high, the city seemed to breathe slowly, wrapped in history and tranquility. She lingered near one tower with a bench built into the stone. There, she sat and watched a family of ducks glide across a pond below, their shapes tiny and perfect. At midday, Ella returned to the lakeside promenade. The path was lined with weeping willows and park benches. She passed joggers, elderly couples walking hand in hand, and children feeding ducks. The breeze off the lake was fresh and sweet. She bought lunch from a food stall near the boat dock, a bratwurst served with Rösti, the crisp golden Swiss potato dish. She ate while sitting on a stone wall, watching the paddle steamers glide across the lake, their red and white Swiss flags fluttering. A street musician nearby played a soft melody on an alphorn, the haunting notes rising and falling with the breeze. In the afternoon, she boarded one of those steamers for a boat cruise across Lake Lucerne. The wooden deck gleamed in the sun, and the rhythmic churning of the paddle wheels was soothing. As the boat sailed eastward, the towns along the lake appeared like pearls strung together. Weggis, Witznau, and Jersau. Green hills rose gently behind them, dotted with chalets and cow pastures. She spotted grazing cows with bells that clanged softly, a sound that felt like music woven into the hills. Ella sat on the top deck with a glass of apple juice, letting the wind play with her hair. A young couple beside her pointed out landmarks. The Rütli meadow where Switzerland's founding oath was sworn, and the Tellskapelle, the chapel marking the site where William Tell escaped his captors. The boat staff handed out brochures with maps and short stories of the lake's myths, and she read about mermaids said to live in the depths, and lost treasure beneath the water. The cruise ended in Witznau, and from there, she took the cogwheel train up Mount Rigi, the queen of the mountains. The ride was steep, and the views opened with each turn. Pine forests gave way to alpine meadows, and soon she was above the clouds. At the summit, the world was silent. Ella stood alone, gazing across a sea of peaks that stretched into the horizon. The air was thin and pure. She walked along the ridge, stopping to sit in the grass and watch as birds circled above. A few hikers passed her, offering cheerful greetings in a mix of languages. She lay on her back and let the sun warm her face as the mountain wind carried the faint sound of distant cowbells. She descended by cable car to Weggis, the golden light of afternoon bathing the town in warmth. She wandered slowly through the gardens and along the shore before catching a ferry back to Lucerne. In the early evening, she returned to her hotel to freshen up. Then she set out once more, this time dressed in a light shawl and scarf. She headed to the old town for dinner. She chose a cozy restaurant tucked between two buildings along Pfistergasse. Inside, wooden beams stretched across the ceiling, and candles flickered on every table. She ordered a bowl of Alpler Swiss Alpine macaroni, with cheese, potatoes, and caramelized onions. It was hearty, rich, and comforting. For dessert, she had a slice of Zuckerkirschtorte, a cherry liqueur cake layered with cream. She lingered at the table, sipping herbal tea and listening to the soft hum of voices and the occasional clink of glass. After dinner, she took a final walk through the quiet streets. The moon reflected in the river, and the chapel bridge was now illuminated, its reflection dancing gently in the water. She stopped on the bridge and leaned against the railing, taking a deep breath of the cool night air. From across the water, she could hear faint laughter and a violin playing somewhere in the shadows. She wrote in her journal, "Lucerne is made of silence, snow, and stillness. It is a city that listens to wind, to water, to time. I have never felt more calm, more seen, more quietly alive." She returned to her hotel and sat by the window for a while, watching the lights of boats in the harbor. Then, with the shutters open and the sounds of distant bells echoing through the streets, she fell into a peaceful sleep, her dreams filled with mountains, music, and the hush of the lake.